God body is simple. It means you see God when you look in the mirror, and that the body of man is God, and that there's no mystery God in the sky. You are God.
I smile every time I check out the intro. Hey, what's going on, man? We're here in the Anabolic Mind. I am Mark Jenkins, and we got the second go round, but you guys will never see the first go round because I forgot to press the record button. So this is the second go round with my girl, Sue Hitzmann, founder of the Melt Method, and we're going to talk about fitness, wellness, and all of that good stuff. Sue, thank you for coming on for the second time.
Thank you for having me again. And I have to say, I do love that intro because we are God, but man, we're human too. And sometimes we forget to click record.
That's well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I've done it. I'm sorry. I've done it too.
We're God's cloth in human flesh.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah.
We are all one. We have to remember that. That's a really great thing to make people remember, for sure.
Yep, for sure. So welcome.
Thank
for the
you.
second time. How was your new year?
Fantastic. I went in really thinking, I hear people talking about getting into 2022, hitting the ground running. And I'm like, I don't want to hit the ground running because that sounds like somebody tripped and fell and smashed their face hitting the ground running. I would rather sit back, reflect on 2021, and did I accomplish the goals that I had for the year? And how am I going to reconstruct 2022 and make great goals for this year so that I can improve upon myself and my career and everything else? So that's what I did this year.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I think everybody did a little bit of reflection with the pandemic and works and, all of that stuff. But before we get into that, brief background about yourself, what you do, what you did, how we met, and where you're at now.
All in one big breath.
One big breath.
So I've been in the fitness industry for over 30 years, and I met Mark at what was at one point Reebok Sports Club, teaching in group exercise. I have a master's in physiology and anatomy, and I am the creator of a self-care technique called the Melt Method. And I basically spend the majority of my time helping people mitigate persistent pain issues and live a more active, healthy, pain-free life.
And Sue used to teach a spinning class.
I still do.
Reebok Sports Club.
Yeah.
You're still teaching?
I do. I love teaching. I mean, I love teaching, although in groups, it's been really crazy because of the pandemic. But teaching in groups is such an electric thing for me. I love teaching environments.
I do miss the group energy. But but all of us used to get in front of Sue's class and scream her name, Sue, 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 Sue. And all our clients were looking around and freaked out because the walls used to be glass. So we could just flex and look mean and go, Sue, 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 Sue. That was the highlight of our afternoon training. Yeah. Good times, man. Good times. Yep. So tell us about your journey and how you went from spinning to founder of the Melt Method to now having one of the biggest fascia release platforms out. Am I mistaken?
I'm going to say
I think so. So tell us how you made that transition.
Sure. I mean, I've been in fitness. I've been teaching in group exercise since I was 16. And in my early 20s, I got a master's in physiology and anatomy, and I shifted more into working with high performance athletes, mostly people who had gotten injured and were trying to get back out on the field faster. So really working with neuromuscular therapy, hands-on techniques to reintegrate stability in clients that had altered what we call sensory motor control. And at that point, I thought I was the smartest kid in the room. I, had tons of clients, really was big into that influential world. I had an international best-selling boot camp video and was doing ESPN shows. And one day I woke up and the bottom of my foot hurt me. And it stopped me in my tracks. It started out as foot pain and it quickly turned into this body-wide fatigue and ache. And nothing was helping me in my wheelhouse. I mean, I had gone to see top doctors and also colleagues to try to figure out what was causing my pain. And what was intriguing was the first diagnosis was plantar fasciitis. I had also had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and lupus mixed in there. But I just kept thinking, if it's plantar fasciitis, that's inflamed fascia. And could inflamed fascia actually cause so much of my pain in my body. And if that's the case, there was no exercise for that. So I kind of veered out of the fitness industry, and the luck of the draw was back then Google became a thing. I typed in fascia on the internet, and I found this emerging field of fascial researchers and scientists who were uncovering what fascia was and how it related to not only persistent pain, but longevity. And I started to apply the techniques in my hands-on therapy. And a client said to me one day, if you could just invent a way for me to do to myself what you do with your magic hands, I'd stay out of your office. And that was kind of an invitation. So I started developing homework for my clients that was simulating what I was doing with my hands. And I came up with this idea of taking a piece of PVC piping, I wrapped it in bubble wrap, I wrapped it in a yoga blanket and then a yoga mat, and I duct taped the thing together so it had nice, gentle, soft compression techniques like the manual therapy techniques I was learning. And it worked. My clients were able to go home, maintain the changes, and come back better. And, that client saying, hey, invent something I can do for myself really became kind of a calling card for me. And I went from seeing 50 people a year in a private practice to over 500. And I thought I was going to make myself less busy. Well, at that point, I couldn't see enough people. And so I thought maybe I should maybe I could teach this in a group environment. So after doing it in a private practice for about 3 years, in 2004, I started teaching in group environments. I coined the term MELT. And today I've got 2,000 instructors worldwide, a New York Times best-selling book, a second book that came out in 2019, and we're in 28 countries, and I just am
killing it. Yeah, so proud of you, man. That's awesome. I love to see people, I came up with, still in the fitness industry, because there's not many of us, who started back then and who are actually doing well, still
well, and our bodies are still doing well. I mean, that's it. Is a lot of people our age, they've got hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder surgeries. It's a tough industry.
Yeah, it's a tough industry, and a big part of it is, for me, as at that time, I think when I met you, I was in my 230s, 240s, easy, maybe a little heavier.
Yeah.
And but I always used to stop working out to stretch, and none of the guys used to stretch with me.
Yeah.
None of the dudes. What am I doing that for? And you're not going to stretch after the workout, or just stretching between sets. So it was always something. And then I was actively taking yoga classes back then because I was working in the gym. I said, why not take advantage? So it was a lot of things that I did back then. I look back now.
Yeah, it's progressive, right? In recent times, people are talking about that recovery is a brand new thing. I mean, when COVID happened, you were seeing recovery. Everybody's got to learn recovery. And I think to myself, that word needs to change. It should be restorative, because if you don't spend time preparing before you perform your athletics and then restoring your body, like you're saying, either stretching or doing mindful meditation or yoga or anything, you're going to spend a lot of time and money recovering from injuries and seeking out a therapist to fix you, when really your healing components of your body are within you. And that's really what I've been trying to share with people, is that even if you eat right and you exercise, persistent pain is still there. It's the dirty little secret of fitness, is lots of people eat right and exercise and still have persistent pain, right? Yeah.
And a training in pain, or taking all kinds of medication.
No gain, right?
Training. Yeah. So what do you think for the layman, right? For the person who just started working out, maybe for New Year's, what would you say is the correct ratio exercise to restorative? Like for every hour training, you should be doing...
It does, I wouldn't even put it into an hour, but what I would say is that whereas weight training and resistance training, you shouldn't be doing every single day. You should take some days literally off to give your muscles time to actually repair and restore. And connective tissue is what helps repair muscles once we create those micro tears. But I always think of self-care and restorative techniques like MELT as being a daily self-care practice. Just like you brush your teeth every day so that your breath is fresh, you're also brushing your teeth daily to prevent tooth decay in the future. So I think if people could instill 10 minutes of self-care every day, whether, again, that's MELT or mindful meditation or something where you are focusing inward and really connecting to your body on a deeper level than just what you see in a mirror or what the scale says, I think that overall your joy and happiness and well-being will be there. And so you're going to feel better because you are more connected to your body. So I think it's a daily thing.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, I try to tell my clients, I said, you guys need to be stretching at least 15 minutes per hour training.
That's good. Stretching.
I try to tell them, so at least,
Why
they're
not?
doing something restorative as soon as calming their central nervous system before they leave the gym, stuff like that. Just so, I know they did something within the session,
That's right.
So let me ask you another question.
Okay.
What is the difference between the foam rollers and the spiked ones? For the layman who doesn't know, like
You mean my rollers and the spiked ones?
Your rollers, regular rollers, and
Sure.
the spiked ones.
Okay, so traditionally foam rolling has been around since the 60s going into the 70s, and it basically was a way to work on myofascia, which is the fascia as it relates to muscles. So it's basically a way to restore blood flow to your muscles. And the basic idea is that you're supposed to compress your body and roll yourself and iron yourself like a shirt. When you find lumpy areas, you're to dig them out like you'll win an award for inflicting pain. In Melt, I actually have my roller right here. Melt,
right.
We use a soft roller. And the soft roller is more to restore the hydration and fluid flow of connective tissue to improve joint stability. So for anybody listening, even if you don't have pain, what people don't realize is daily living causes a breakdown in our connective tissue called fascia. And even if you don't have pain, we've all experienced this lack of fluid perfusion in the tissue. Like when you sit for long periods of time and when you get up, you feel like you aged 40 years because your joints don't work as well when you get up as they did when you sat down. Or you wake up in the morning and you're super stiff for the first 10, 15 minutes, but once you start to move around, it goes away. So the thing about fascia is the sensitivity that you feel when you first get up is a signal that the fluid flow is not moving through your joints. And when you move, that's why movement is so important, but you're really not addressing how to stabilize the whole system. And so Melt is a very refined technique. People see the roller and they think it's foam rolling. And I always say to them, we're not really worried about your muscles. Muscle balance and stability will come along for the ride. The goal here is to improve the entire connective tissue system to improve your stability, because you can't be efficiently mobile if you're inefficiently stable. So really we're focusing on the stability components of your nervous system and your connective tissue system, not the musculoskeletal system in Melt. So that's really the difference between those two concepts.
All right, dope, cool. All right, so what do you think is going to happen in the future, 10 years from now, in the health and wellness space? Where do you see it?
I think that the fitness industry is like any industry. We go in cycles. When you and I first got into the industry, there were a ton of boutique fitness studios in New York. Molly Fox, Jeff Martin had a studio, right? These small boutiques.
Right.
But we had a stock market crash and all the small studios disappeared and the big box studios started to come up online. New York Sports Club, Equinox, Crunch, right? And they dominated the industry. Well, over the course of the early 2000s and into the mid 2000s, like 2010, we had all of these boutique studios come right back up again, just like they were in the 50s, died out for 10 years, came back, and then COVID happened, and all the boutique studios
got wiped out all over again.
Right, that's it, they're gone. But the Equinoxes and all the big studios are there again. So I think in 10 years, we're going to find that new resurgence of new types of studios that are hybrid studios that offer different offerings, from restorative to HIIT training. And I think that the education in fitness, I think it's gotten better over the years, but I think it's the dedication of the industry leaders educating people in a good way, and not just, people going to conferences and learning 27,000 things. And then the worst day of all training is the day after a conference where the trainer is just throwing everything at their client, trying to see what they remember. So I think that there's new programming that's coming. I mean, again, like with Melt, we have 50-hour training that goes over. The first level is 3 months long. It's not, it's not the weekend, yoga certification in 2 days and you're trained.
Right.
It really has some meat to it. So I think that the industry is just going to continue to have its ebbs and flows, but I'm hopeful that with technology and all of the new ways we have for restoring our bodies and longevity, I think that the longevity components are really going to start to implement themselves into fitness, because the traditional confines of fitness is about weight loss and muscle building.
Right. Now it's going more to the wellness space now.
Exactly. Now I think it's going more wellness, longevity. And I think that as you start to really recognize that you don't just want to look good now, you want to look and feel good for the long haul of your life.
Right.
So if you're in your 50s like me, you still look good and your skin's still good and your joints still move and you don't have body pain. I think that's where the industry is going, or that's where I'd like to direct it to.
Hey, you're looking good. Well, I'm glad you're in charge. You're top notching it right now, so you can steer us in the right direction.
Indeed.
So what's the biggest difference between now working and 15, 20 years ago? I know what I would say, but I'm curious to see what's your
I mean, for me, I think it's just because we've moved so much of our education online, right? The internet has really given us an opportunity to be out there in front of more people. But I think there's also a lot of garbage out there and a lot of posers, a lot of people who just want to be the celebrity trainer, but haven't really done like what you've done, where you saw a niche, you saw a missing element in the world that you had, and you said, how can I be a celebrity trainer? And you sought after a right demographic that was ripe for the picking and focused in on it, got small and then expanded. And that's really the success of, I think, because we kind of came from that hardworking world, whereas everybody's like a famous person now because they've got 1 million followers on social media, and I think that means something to people.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're learning to train people without them being in front of us, which is, I think, a new paradigm for fitness in general.
Right.
Is learning.
Well, and I think is even more interesting because a lot of the newer trainers, it's like, Sue, when we came up, you had to put your time in the clubs,
hustle.
And hustle, and then graduate to becoming an actual independent trainer.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you graduated, like the average person back then had 5-6 years in the club. So that means you've seen thousands of people, you've trained hundreds of people, you've seen different body types, you've seen different injuries. You have a baseline of experience and reference points you can refer to, as opposed to now, you get your certification online. You don't have any practical experience.
Yeah, and no hands-on, right?
And no hands-on experience, and now you're training people. So that's the biggest difference now. Although there's more information out and it's more accessible now, these trainers don't have a practical application of the information.
I agree. And even for me, I mean, I've had my hands on over 10,000 people in a private practice, as well as teaching in live group environments, right, around the world. And so you're right. Like you get to see, I've seen every known disorder, disease, and dysfunction.
Right. You've seen it all.
Yeah. But you're right. It takes a lot of time and a lot of focus. And I just wonder if our coming generations are willing to put the time and the work and actually understand that shift between live, actual physical application and practice, and really working. And that's why they call it a practice, is because you're practicing on people, right? Instead of just, I learned something and now I'm a celebrity trainer, or now I'm a top educator, but I don't really have any practical experience. And
you see that on the social media marketing.
Oh yeah.
You see 10,000 super impossible exercises that you couldn't do that are probably going to injure you.
Yes.
But because they look good and they're flashy, the trainers will sequence 3 or 4 of these in a row and say, chest burner, do this. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And
or pectoral tear.
Right. Or pectoral tear or shoulder, whatever they're doing. So it's interesting, but the marketing, as opposed to being having substance, but it's I think it's the lack of education on the general population. Like there's no health education, so the consumer doesn't know, and that's a big problem as well.
Yeah, that really is. It doesn't matter really what demographic you're in, but certainly different demographics really are not going in really knowing very much. And again, the internet is full of bullshit. There's so much junk out there. There's people telling you things that are not true, and people believe it. Just like some people still believe that the earth is flat, but needless to say, we do have that it's round. Okay. But I think that's it, is belief and science, there's a fine line between it, right? And if science says if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. And a lot of people say, I don't care, I believe this is going to work and I'm going to do it. So we really, I think that you have to be an educated consumer and a discerning consumer by really doing a little bit of due diligence and homework about what you're hearing and what's really going to work for you. And just like you said, just because you see some hot body jumping on a Bosu ball or whatever it is and telling you this is going to make your butt look more lifted in your jeans, may not be what happens to you. You might mess up your knee and not be able to walk for a month. So I think that the buildup and progression of self-care and fitness education, really you have to make a plan. And I think this is where you and I really meet, is goal setting, short-term goals, long-term goals, setting a plan for your clients, saying, look, this isn't like overnight. And if you've got like, a celebrity that's looking for, hey, I've got 30 days before I shoot this video. Well, you got to go hard and go at it, but that's not sustainable over the long haul. And they have to go in knowing that and realizing that if what you want to do is just get lean for your wedding or for a video shoot or whatever, okay, that's something. But if what you want to do is lead an active, healthy, pain-free life for your whole life, that's a completely different long-term
thing. Absolutely. Your program would have to address your imbalances.
Yes.
You get healthy before you get in shape. That's what I tell my clients. I said, listen,
well said.
I know you want to get in shape, but let's get healthy right now. Let's get you not overcompensating on that left leg. So when we squat, you don't end up blowing that knee out. You know what I mean? Before we get started. And that's the biggest thing with most people. They start off with so many deficiencies and imbalances, both nutritional and structural. They end up getting injured from the program.
Yeah.
Then if the program is too extreme, it's a wrap for them.
You're also saying something really important, which I think is a skill in practice, is creating rapport with your clients, is meeting them where they're at, not what you want to do. Right. But what does this particular person really need? And saying, hey, we've got to get your hips stable before we go doing big squats. Otherwise, we're going to mess you up. I know you want to do those squats, but it's a bad idea. Let's back you up a little bit and we'll get there, but let's do the right steps. And that is, again, the education that you have from years of your own personal training, your own experience, and definitely training tons and tons of people. That's how you get good at anything.
Yeah. And I get it, because as a trainer, you want to be seen with your client doing the hardest shit on the floor. It's not exactly the greatest look to see someone for you doing external rotation, all the time. I'm just thinking in the trainer's mind.
Sure.
So I get it, but it'd be much better to get the result if you're concerned about your career. Do what's right for the client as opposed to what looks good on the ego level.
100%.
Right. So let's fast forward to let's go to the pandemic. How's the pandemic impacted your business, and what kind of adjustments have you had to make?
Well, I really pivoted quickly when it happened and everybody's like, oh, this will just be a few weeks. I was like, this is a virus. Do you guys remember the bubonic plague? That thing killed people for years. Let's really think about what it is. And so I had a 2020 world tour plan for Mel to do teacher trainings all the way into Asia. Canceled 20 different events and shifted and said, I'm just going to create an entire curriculum online. So actually it's been amazing shifting a curriculum that has been all live hands-on work and doing demonstrations and techniques and doing it all on video, which has actually been amazing, because I hear from most of my instructors, I'm from New York, so I talk really fast. And so they're like, I can you, I can rewind you, I can listen to you again. And they never had that opportunity in the live training. So it's actually offered us to have higher quality instructors and to give them even more than they would get in a live training. I've had an online platform called Melt on Demand since 2018. So we were already developing online videos for the general public so that they could go home beyond the DVDs that I created back when DVDs were a thing in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So we also have that. And, it's just been a big shift of you know, strategizing business, shifting our business model, you know, making sure that we're setting better budgets and not spending money where we don't need to. So it's been a rude awakening. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, they've been sitting on their ass for 2.5 years now, waiting for this to really end. And
it's not. No, it's not.
No.
There's new strains coming out, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to ask you, like, what is your take on these people, right? And I'm not even knocking anybody, because a lot of these people are my friends and family. You know, they don't want to get vaccinated, right? They're anti-vaxxers. They don't fuck with the vaccination, right? But they don't want to wear the mask. They don't exercise, right? They have pre-existing conditions, and they don't take any supplementation. What do you like? How do you? I'm trying to understand. Like, I understand you don't want to take the vaccination. Okay, I get it.